I remember that night in pieces, like flickering images from a film I didn't want to keep watching. It was one of those low-key get-togethers that Sarah always insisted would just be a chill evening. Drinks, music, friends around a backyard fire pit. But even before anything happened, something already felt off. We had arrived together hand in hand like always. She was radiant as usual. Her hair up in that quick bun she somehow made look like a style. A deep Berg *NY coat I hadn't seen before, lips stained with that subtle red she wore when she wanted to look nice without trying. But the moment we stepped into the backyard, her hand dropped from mine. I remember that clearly. Just a little detail, but enough that it lodged somewhere in the back of my mind. The fire was crackling, conversation was flowing. I got caught up talking with Mike and Lena about some car trouble he was having, and Sarah drifted into a cluster of her coworkers by the drink table. She'd started working at this marketing firm 6 months ago. I hadn't met many of her coworkers, just heard about them through random anecdotes. Tyler, Jess, someone named Ava, names that never really stuck until that night. An hour passed, maybe 2. I had lost track of her somewhere between a beer and a bourbon. Every once in a while I glanced around, but I wasn't worried. It wasn't unusual for her to float from conversation to conversation. That's just who Sarah was, social, magnetic. People always gravitated toward her. But then she came back. The firelight caught her face first, rosy cheeks, that easy smile she wore when she knew all eyes were on her. What really made me pause, though, was the jacket. A black, masculine, high-collar jacket draped over her shoulders. Definitely not hers. Definitely not mine. She sat beside me like nothing was different. A little flushed, smelling like something I'd never worn in my life. The cologne clung to the air around her, expensive and woody, like something out of a men's fashion magazine. I leaned slightly back, pretending to stretch. The scent followed. It wasn't mine. It wasn't even familiar. Whose jacket? I asked, careful to keep my voice even. She glanced down like she'd forgotten she was even wearing it. "Oh, Tyler's," she said casually, shrugging. It got cold out back. Before I could say anything else, someone from across the fire, Lena maybe, grinned and raised her beer. "Hey, Sarah, you two were out there for a while. What kind of smoke break lasts 30 minutes? A few people chuckled. Someone whistled. Someone else raised their eyebrows. "Don't worry, Mark," Mike said to me, elbowing my arm with a smirk. "She's just networking." Even more laughter now. Loud, tipsy, harmless on the surface. Everyone loves a scandal when it's not theirs. Sarah gave a mock gasp and playfully shoved Tyler's shoulder as he sat down next to her. Just a little too close. "You guys are ridiculous. We were talking about work stuff." "Work stuff?" Someone echoed, snickering. "You mean the kind you can't say in front of your husband?" Sarah laughed again. Head thrown back, loud and exaggerated. Okay, enough. Now you're all just being dumb." She turned to me then, her expression suddenly softer. "It's nothing, babe." He was being a gentleman. I was cold. He offered. She said it so smoothly, like she'd rehearsed it, like she knew exactly how to wrap a half-truth in a smile and pass it off as a funny story. The jacket stayed on her shoulders. Tyler stayed beside her. The smell of his cologne clung to her skin like it belonged there. I tried to smile. I did. I forced my lips into something that might have looked like amusement. But inside I was freezing. Everyone else kept laughing, their attention quickly shifting to someone else's story about a disastrous Zoom meeting or a cringy wedding toast. The moment passed for them. The joke landed. The tension dissolved. But I couldn't move past it, because when she leaned over to pour herself another drink, I noticed something. Something small, something stupid, but unforgettable. A smudge on her neck, just beneath her ear, faint, almost hidden by her hair. Lipstick? A shadow? A thumbprint? I didn't ask, because what kind of husband ruins the party over something so small? I sat there for the rest of the night, hearing people talk, watching Sarah light up in every conversation, listening to her laugh and joke and toss her hair just the way she does when she's buzzing off attention. She was perfect. She was glowing. But every time Tyler leaned toward her to say something, Something I wasn't supposed to hear. I felt it. That cold, creeping certainty that I didn't belong in the room the same way they did. Later, when we got home, I asked again. Lightly. Almost joking myself. So, Tyler's jacket, huh? She was in the bathroom, wiping off her makeup. Her voice echoed from behind the door. God, are you still thinking about that? It was cold, Mark. Don't be weird. I'm not being weird. She opened the door then, face clean, eyes sharp. You're reading too much into it. It was just a jacket. You know me better than that. And that's what got me. You know me better than that. Because that's the sentence you use when you want someone to drop it. Not when you're being honest. Not when you're actually trying to explain something. I didn't push. I said okay. I even laughed a little and kissed her goodnight like nothing had happened. But lying there in the dark, staring at the ceiling while she scrolled on her phone with the screen turned away from me, I knew. I knew something had shifted. That wasn't just a joke. That was the first crack in the wall. After that night, I couldn't let it go. Not just the jacket or the scent of cologne that wasn't mine. It was something quieter, deeper, something that stuck to my ribs like wet cement. I didn't confront her again, not directly, but I started noticing everything. Couldn't help it. That's the curse of suspicion. You start seeing patterns where you once saw routines, questions where you used to find comfort. It was like rewinding through months of our life with a new filter on. It started with her hours. Sarah had always been a late worker. Marketing never sleeps, she used to joke. But ever since she joined the new team, her hours got stranger. Before, she might stay late once or twice a week. Now it was constant. Big campaign, she'd say. Tight deadlines, we're under pressure. I believed her at first, until I started paying attention. She'd come home past 9 p.m. Sometimes, and not the just finished working kind of late. She'd walk through the door looking like she'd stepped out of a wine bar, not an office. Shoes too clean, hair too perfect, makeup barely smudged, and she always smelled nice, like she'd reapplied perfume right before walking in. Rough day, I'd ask, watching her kick off her heels. She'd shrug. Long but good. I'm just exhausted. And that was her new default. Tired. Too tired for dinner. Too tired to talk. Too tired for anything. She'd sink into the couch and disappear into her phone. Thumbs moving fast. Screen tilted just out of my view. She used to leave it on the coffee table. Now it followed her everywhere: bathroom, bedroom, backyard. Once I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She said sure. But when I reached for her phone to adjust the Bluetooth speaker, she snapped. I've got it, she said, grabbing it from my hand like it was a loaded *P***N. I didn't ask again. And it wasn't just the phone. It was everything. Our weekends, for example. We used to spend Saturdays together, running errands, cooking something new, arguing about which movie to watch and then falling asleep halfway through it. But lately, her Saturdays vanished. There was always a reason: brunch with the girls, a coworker's birthday, team-building retreat. At first, I encouraged her. I didn't want to be the kind of guy who kept his wife from having a life. But the invites were always vague. Never something I was included in. When I'd offer to drive her or meet her afterward, she'd wave me off. It's just work stuff, babe. You'd be bored. And maybe she was right. Maybe I would be bored. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't being left out. I was being kept out. I started keeping track. Not like a psychopath, just mental notes. She'd say she was with Rachel on a Sunday afternoon. But then I'd hear her on the phone later that week say something like, I haven't seen Rachel in forever. Small lies. Harmless, maybe, but they stacked up like bricks. One night, about 3 weeks after the jacket incident, I offered to pick her up from work. She had texted me that she was stuck late again, and I happened to be nearby, so I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe bring her coffee. Something small, something kind. Called her. No answer. I texted, outside your building. Need help carrying you home? No reply. I waited 15 minutes before she finally responded. Ah, sweet, but I'm actually heading out with the team. Didn't want to bother you. Love you. But something didn't sit right. Because while I was waiting outside, I had watched the main entrance carefully. And I hadn't seen her come out. Not once. Maybe she left through the back. Maybe she was already gone. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the next day, I drove by the office around the same time. Just out of curiosity. She wasn't there. I never mentioned it. Instead, I told myself I needed to calm down. That I couldn't be that guy, jealous, paranoid, controlling. That's not me. Or at least it wasn't. But it wasn't just her schedule or her phone, or the way she always seemed to be one step ahead of my questions. It was the way she looked at me, or rather, the way she didn't. She used to make eye contact when we talked. Now her eyes darted, like she was trying to keep track of something behind me. Conversations that once felt effortless started to feel like interviews. Me asking questions, her giving short answers. Always polite, always just enough. And God, the int asterisk Macy, we weren't cold. Not exactly. But something between us had gone dull. Like a light bulb that still flickers but doesn't quite fill the room. She still kissed me goodnight, but it felt like a habit, not a choice. Her touch was distant. Her warmth felt borrowed. I tried to initiate once. I remember it vividly. We had both gotten home early, the house was quiet, and I leaned in to kiss her neck. She stiffened, pulled away gently. Not tonight, she said. I have a headache. That had been happening more often. Headaches, exhaustion. Not tonight. I have to wake up early. Can we just cuddle? And yeah, maybe those things happen in long-term relationships. Maybe we were just in a rut. But I knew her. I knew when she was retreating. And she was far, far away. I started dreaming about it. About walking in on her. About reading messages I wasn't supposed to see. About her leaving without saying goodbye. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and just watch her sleep, wondering where her mind was when her eyes were closed. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother, not my best friend. Not even my mom who could sniff out drama like a bloodhound. I kept it all inside, like maybe if I didn't say it out loud, it wasn't real. I clung to little signs of hope. The way she still laughed at dumb commercials. The way she still made my coffee just the way I liked it. But those moments felt rehearsed, like she was playing a role she'd memorized long ago. And the strangest thing? She started being nicer to me, almost overly sweet. She'd compliment me randomly, tell me I looked good in a shirt I'd worn a dozen times. She'd suggest we go out for dinner only to cancel later. Felt like guilt, not affection. Like she was trying to even the scales without tipping them too far. That's when it all started making sense. The elegant clothes. The phone flipped face down. The office doors I wasn't invited behind. The half-smiles, the headaches, the last-minute cancellations. It all added up to a picture I didn't want to look at. But I couldn't stop seeing it. I was no longer her partner. I was her cover story. And deep down, I think part of me already knew the truth. The truth didn't explode all at once. It trickled in, quiet and almost polite, like it didn't want to wake the version of me still pretending everything was fine. It was a Thursday. The sky was gray. I remember that, because I'd come home early from work. A half day I hadn't planned but took anyway after spending the morning staring blankly at spreadsheets. I just couldn't do it. My head wasn't in it, hadn't been for weeks. And honestly, neither was my heart. The house was empty. Sarah had texted earlier to say she was working from home, but I assumed she'd stepped out for coffee or a walk. I didn't question it. I unlocked the door like I always did, tossed my keys in the bowl by the entry, and walked into our kitchen like nothing had changed. Except something had. Her handbag was sitting on the chair by the counter, unzipped. It's not like I meant to look inside. I didn't plan to go through her stuff. I swear I didn't. But as I passed it, I noticed a folded piece of paper sticking out of the side pocket. I would have ignored it, should have ignored it, but my name was on the back. No, not my name. It said, "To Sarah, you make the hours disappear." Hey, I froze. The air went thin. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I reached into the bag, pulled the note out, and underneath it was a glossy concert ticket stub, creased at the edges like it had been fidgeted with all night. 2 names were printed on the back in messy handwriting. Neither was mine. Sarah and Andrew. I just stood there holding it, reading it, rereading it, trying to make sense of it. My first reaction wasn't even anger. It was something colder, numbness. Like my body had gone into standby mode just to survive the moment. Andrew. A name I'd never heard before. Not from her. Not from her stories about work. Not from her office parties or late meetings or just a friend explanations. Who the hell was Andrew? And why was she hiding a note from him in her purse like a teenager hiding a love letter from her parents? I set the note on the counter carefully, like it might explode, and stepped back. I told myself maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was old. Maybe she had kept it for some innocent reason I didn't understand. I even told myself, don't jump to conclusions. But then I walked past the living room window and saw it. Saw them. Sarah and a man I instantly knew was Andrew. I didn't need an introduction. I didn't need a backstory. The way they sat on the couch told me everything. Too close. Too familiar. Her body angled toward him, her hand on his knee. Laughing. Whispering something. She had told me she was alone today. She had told me she was working. And there she was, wrapped up in someone else like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't go inside. I didn't barge through the door and scream. I stood frozen, watching through the window like a stranger looking in on a life that wasn't his anymore. That moment, those 30 silent seconds of watching her face light up for someone else, broke something in me. Not loud, not dramatic, just final. I backed away slowly, careful not to be seen, walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove. I didn't even know where I was going. I just needed to move, to breathe, to not be there. I ended up parked in a grocery store lot, staring at a couple arguing next to their cart. They looked ridiculous. He was holding a bag of frozen peas. She was yelling about the wrong brand of cereal. And all I could think was, God, I miss that. I miss when we fought about nothing because there was nothing big enough to ruin us yet. Eventually, I went back. Hours later, the sun was setting. The house was quiet when I walked in. Sarah was in the kitchen, back turned, pouring wine into a glass. She looked up, surprised. Hey, I didn't hear you come in. Her voice was casual, too casual. How was work? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past her, picked up the concert ticket and note from where I'd left them on the counter, and held them up between us. For a second, she didn't move. Then her smile faltered. Her glass clinked against the counter as she set it down. Where did you get that? It was in your bag. You went through my stuff? I didn't have to. It was right there, on the chair. You left it out. She reached for the note, but I didn't let go. Who's Andrew? Her lips parted. No sound came out. Who is he, Sarah? She finally spoke, voice small. He's just a friend. Don't insult me. I'm not. You are, I said flatly. You are, Sarah, because I saw you, today, in our living room, with him. She went pale. You told me you were working. I was. Don't. My voice cracked. Just don't lie again. She looked down, tears starting to gather, but they didn't move me. Not this time. How long? I asked. I don't know, she whispered. You don't know? It wasn't supposed to happen. It started with drinks after work and then... Her hands were shaking now. I didn't plan it, Mark. But you kept it going. Silence. You let it keep happening. You brought him into our home. You lied every time you said you were tired or working or with friends. I was confused. No, you were careful. There's a difference. She stepped toward me, reaching for my hand. Please, don't do this right now. Let's talk. We are talking. For the first time in months. I still love you. You don't do this to someone you love. Her tears came harder now. I made a mistake. You made a choice. I walked out of the kitchen, note still in hand, past our photos on the wall. The wedding picture, the trip to Lake Tahoe, the Polaroid from our first apartment. All of it felt like evidence from someone else's life. She followed me down the hall. Please, Mark, we can fix this. We've been through worse. Have we? I asked, spinning around. Have we been through worse than you cheating on me in our living room? That shut her up. I stared at her for a long moment, waiting for her to say something. Anything that might make this feel less final. But she didn't. She just stood there, broken and cornered, with no version of the story left to spin. So I turned away, walked upstairs, closed the door, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I locked it. I wasn't planning to end it that night. I had rehearsed a dozen different scenarios in my head, each one quieter, more private than the last. Maybe I'd sit her down in the living room. Maybe we'd cry. Maybe she'd beg. Maybe I'd leave. Maybe I'd wait until the weekend. Maybe I'd wait until I could breathe without wanting to break something. But Sarah made the decision for me. It was a Saturday. One of our friends, technically her friend, was throwing a backyard party for someone's birthday. A cookout, fire pit, wine flowing like water. It was the kind of gathering where everyone pretended their lives were effortless, jobs were glamorous, relationships untouchable. We hadn't spoken much since I found the note. We existed in a polite, frigid silence. I stayed out late. She tiptoed around the house. I slept in the guest room. She left coffee for me in the mornings, untouched. So when she casually asked, "You still coming to Jake's tonight?" It caught me off guard. I stared at her from across the hallway. "Do you want me to?" She hesitated. "It'd be weird if you didn't." That sentence hit like a brick. Not, "I want you there." Not, "Let's go together." Just, "It'd be weird if you didn't." I nodded once. Sure. I didn't do it for her. I did it for me. I needed to see who she became around other people. I needed to know if the woman I once trusted still existed in there somewhere, or if she'd already been replaced. We arrived separately. She got there first, of course. I waited 15 minutes in the car, watching the front door of the house as music and laughter spilled out. I knew some of the people inside, but not well. These were her people, her circle. I finally walked in and found her effortlessly sliding between conversations, a drink in hand, laughing like someone who had no secrets at all. When she saw me, she lit up like this was all normal. "There you are," she said, walking over and giving me a light peck on the cheek. "Took you long enough." I just nodded. She grabbed my hand, guiding me toward the circle around the fire pit. Everyone was mid-story. One guy was talking about some nightmare work trip, people were passing around chips and half-burned hot dogs, and the drinks had clearly been flowing for hours. Then someone, I think it was Lena, turned to me and asked, "So Mark, how's the superhero business?" I smiled stiffly. "Fixing garbage disposals. Thrilling stuff." That's when Sarah chimed in, loud enough for everyone to hear. "He once spent 6 hours trying to unclog a toilet. I came home and he was elbow-deep in it, swearing like a sailor. That was his big project that day." The group erupted in laughter. Someone fake gasped, "A man of mystery and elegance. Modern-day knight in rubber gloves," another added. And Sarah? She beamed. She glowed, proud of her punchline, proud of the audience she'd earned. I didn't say a word. I just reached into my pocket. The velvet box felt heavy, heavier than it had the first time I held it. I had bought the new ring 3 months ago. Back then, I thought we were ready for a new chapter. We'd had a rough year. Sure, but I figured it was just life. Stress, exhaustion. Everyone hits walls. I thought we were going to come out of it stronger. I had planned to surprise her during a weekend trip. I had even picked out the words I wanted to say. I wanted to tell her that I still chose her, that after everything, I still wanted us. But I never gave her that speech. Not after the jacket. Not after Andrew. And not after watching her humiliate me in front of people who couldn't tell the difference between a joke and a wound. So I took the box from my pocket, flicked it open with one hand. The conversation stumbled to a halt. A few people gasped. One or two clapped instinctively, thinking they were about to witness a proposal. Sarah turned toward me, eyes wide, her mouth parted, almost smiling, confused. And then I did something I never imagined I'd do. I pulled off her wedding ring, the one I had slid onto her finger nearly 7 years ago. I took it gently, carefully, like it was something sacred, because at one point, it had been. I placed both rings, her old one and the never-given new one, on the table beside her half-empty glass. The silence was immediate and brutal. Every single person stopped moving. Sarah looked down at the rings, then up at me. "Mark, what are you doing?" I looked her dead in the eye. "I was going to ask you to marry me again. Start over. Clean slate. I thought we could find our way back." The breath caught in her throat. "But then you turned me into a joke," I continued. "Over and over. Not just here. Not just now. For months." I stepped back. "You can keep the rings. Or throw them away. Doesn't matter anymore." Her eyes began to water. "Mark, can we talk?" "No." That one word, said quiet and flat, sliced deeper than shouting ever could. "You had months to talk. You chose silence. And Andrew." I turned to the others, those stunned, wine-drunk faces now sobered by shock. "I'm sorry to interrupt your evening. I'll let you get back to your laughs." And then I walked out. No storming, no shouting, no slamming doors, just silence. That was the loudest part. I made it to the sidewalk before I heard the scrambling behind me. Her friends whispering, the shuffling of chairs, someone calling after me and then thinking better of it. I didn't look back. I got in my car, closed the door, and sat in the dark. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From freedom. It was over. Not in a quiet conversation behind closed doors. Not in 1,000 whispered regrets. But in the one place she could no longer twist the truth. In front of all the people who had laughed when she mocked me. I gave her the ending she earned. And no one was laughing now. She came home before I did. I don't know how. Maybe she slipped out through the side gate. Maybe someone drove her. Or maybe she just ran. Either way, when I opened the front door, she was already there. Sitting on the couch, hands clasped in her lap, eyes red, shoulders stiff like she was holding her breath. She didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me, waiting. Waiting for what? Me to scream? Break something? Tell her I didn't mean it? I didn't. I closed the door, walked past her, and set my keys down quietly on the table. My hands were steady this time. My heart wasn't racing. It was strange. How peaceful it felt now that the storm had passed. She stood slowly. "Can we talk?" I nodded. "You can." That threw her off. I could see it in her face. She wanted a fight. Or maybe she was ready for one. But I wasn't offering her that. Not anymore. She crossed her arms over her chest, not out of defiance, out of habit. Like she was trying to shield herself from the cold she'd created. "What you did back there," her voice cracked. "You humiliated me, Mark." I almost laughed. Her humiliated. She wasn't even trying to hide it, wasn't trying to explain or apologize first. Her opening move was making herself the victim. "You could have pulled me aside," she went on, taking a step forward. "You could have handled that differently, in private. You didn't have to do it in front of everyone." I tilted my head. "Is that what you're upset about? That people saw what you've been hiding?" She blinked. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way." "You didn't mean for me to find out, you mean?" She looked down. For a moment we just stood there in the quiet. The kind that comes right after glass breaks. Still and tense. Both of us waiting to see who'd move first. Then she sighed, like it was my turn to understand something. "Look," she said. "I know I messed up, okay? But you've been distant too. You act like this just happened out of nowhere, but it didn't." There it was. The pivot. Not a confession. A deflection. She walked toward me. Slower now. Like she was approaching a sleeping animal she wasn't sure was friendly anymore. "You stopped talking to me months ago. You barely touched me. I tried to connect with you and..." I cut her off. "Don't." Her mouth snapped shut. "Don't rewrite this. Don't twist this into something mutual. You cheated. You lied. You brought him into our house. That's not a communication problem, Sarah. That's betrayal." She flinched. Just barely. Then, like clockwork, the tears started. And God, I wanted to believe them. I wanted to believe that they meant something. but they didn't land. Not like they used to. They felt practiced now. Performed. She wiped her cheek. I made a mistake. You made a decision, I said again, firmer this time. Over and over. I didn't sleep with him. I raised a hand. Stop. I swear, Mark. We kissed. Yes, but it wasn't. I said stop. She froze. I don't want the details. I don't want the timeline. You already crossed the line. Doesn't matter how far over it you went. Silence. She looked around the living room like she was searching for something to grab onto. A memory, maybe. Some relic of us she could point to and say, look, see? We're still real. Then her eyes landed on the box on the kitchen table. The one I had packed the night before. Neatly. Quietly. Her things. Not all of them, but the pieces of her I was ready to part with. Her favorite coffee mug. Her old hoodie that I used to steal on winter nights. The book she always pretended to be reading. Her face changed. She walked toward it slowly, like the box might bite her. What is this? She asked. You know what it is. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to leave, I said. There's a difference. But this is our house. Not anymore. Mark. Her voice broke again, and for a second, I saw the girl I used to love. Not the version standing in front of me now, trying to control the narrative. Just her. Raw. Scared. Human. But that moment passed, because her next words destroyed it all over again. You're really going to throw away 7 years over this? I stared at her. This? I repeated. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. You don't get to minimize it. You don't get to call it this like it's a scratch on the car or a missed anniversary. I'm not. You betrayed me, I said, my voice low and calm. You lied to my face. You made me feel crazy for noticing. You laughed with him while I sat alone thinking I was paranoid. She was crying harder now, wiping at her cheeks like she could scrub the guilt off if she just rubbed hard enough. I never stopped loving you. Then why did you stop respecting me? She didn't have an answer, and I didn't need one. I'm not yelling, I said quietly. I'm not slamming doors. I'm not throwing your stuff on the lawn. I'm not making a scene. Because you don't care, she snapped suddenly. You act so calm like you're above it all. But this is what you wanted, isn't it? An excuse to walk away. I laughed once. Just once. Sharp and bitter. If I wanted to leave, I would have left months ago. I stayed. Even when things were bad. Even when I felt invisible. I stayed because I believed we could fix it. Then why won't you try now? Because you already decided we weren't worth saving. She went quiet again. You didn't come to me when things got hard, I said. You didn't ask for help. You didn't tell me you were lonely. You let another man fill the space between us, and then you kept coming home like nothing was wrong. I was scared. No, I said. You were selfish. More silence. She moved to sit on the edge of the couch, curling into herself like a child in timeout. The image should have cracked me. A few months ago it would have, but all I felt now was emptiness. She looked up. Are you really done? I was done the moment I saw you with him. She swallowed hard. And there's nothing I can say to change your mind? No. She exhaled like someone who'd been punched. Then, after a long pause, she asked, Can I stay the night? I hesitated. Finally, I nodded. Guest room. Okay. She stood slowly and walked past me, pausing in the doorway. Her hand hovered over the frame like she wanted to reach for something. Me, maybe, but stopped herself. And then she disappeared down the hallway. I stood there alone, the echo of her footsteps fading behind the door. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stood still in the house we built together. Now quiet, now heavy, with her voice still ringing in my ears. Are you really done? Yeah, I was. I didn't shout, didn't break anything. Instead, I opened her laptop, found dozens of messages from Andrew, proof of everything. I closed it quietly, packed my belongings into 2 neat bags, and left. On the pillow in our bedroom, I placed her wedding ring. No note, no speech, just a period at the end of a sentence she'd written. Weeks later, I rented a small workshop on the edge of town. Fixing things steadied me. Customers trickled in, and with each job my confidence returned. I learned to laugh again, real laughs, not the practiced ones from before. Sarah messaged once asking to talk. I never replied. For me, everything had ended the moment she made me feel like someone else's partner.